Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Anthony, and I am the Senior Program Manager for the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much tonight for joining us for the second event of our 2024 Voter Education Series, Ballot Box Basics. For your awareness, this webinar is being recorded, but as an attendee at the webinar, your camera is turned off, so your face will not be included in the recording. A reminder that closed captioning is available in Zoom. To enable closed captions on your screen, click Live Transcript in your Zoom taskbar. If you need more assistance with closed captioning, I'm dropping a help document in the chat. If we can improve accessibility for you in any way, please let us know in the chat. We begin our time together this evening with a land acknowledgement. Colonial Pennsylvania boundaries were first drawn in 1681 over original nation's land. We in Pennsylvania acknowledge the land ownership of original indigenous peoples, honoring the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the great nations of Pennsylvania, the Erie, Iroquois, Munsee Delaware, Shawnee, Ohio Valley, Susquehanna, and Lenape. We honor all original nations of the past and those among us today. Sorry, there we go. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan nonprofit organization. Our state office oversees a grassroots network of 30 local leagues all across Pennsylvania. The league encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. To learn more about our work and to subscribe to our action alerts, please visit our website. I'm dropping those links in the chat right now. I am very pleased to welcome you tonight to Ballot Box Basics, Information Every Voter Needs. We design these webinars because we know that voting, government, and elections can be complicated. In 2024, these monthly webinars will discuss important topics like registering to vote, mis and disinformation, safety at the polls, and much more. Whether you're a first-time voter or have voted in every election you were eligible for, we think you'll learn something new. To watch previous recordings of Ballot Box Basics webinars or to sign up for future events, please visit the link in the chat. Throughout tonight's presentation, you are welcome and encouraged to ask questions using the Q&A function of Zoom. We will leave about 10 minutes for questions at the end of the event. You are also welcome to engage with fellow participants in the chat, but please note that we will only be answering questions from the Q&A tool. In addition to a recording, please note that we will send a copy of the slides to all registrants tomorrow. Tonight, we are joined by Eileen Olmsted and Ruth Quint of the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh. Eileen's current role in her local league is as producer of the weekly e-blast sent to all members of LWV Greater Pittsburgh. She first joined the League of Women Voters in California in 1977 and has held many positions in the league, including the presidency and directorship roles for voter services and membership. One of her proudest league roles was as a SURE Fellow for the National League. As a fellow for 8 years, Eileen coached various leagues in best practices of how to be an effective agent for change. Eileen has a master's in library science and a master's in counseling psychology. Ruth Quint joined the League of Women Voters in 2018 to volunteer with the voter service and civic education teams. A former math and technology teacher, Ruth was quickly drafted to work on the website and now is the webmaster for the Pittsburgh League. Ruth lives and gardens in the North Hills with her husband and 2 sons. For many years, Ruth and Eileen have had a passion for good government. They are committed to combating the consequences of mis and disinformation, which have been so prevalent in the past few years. I'm very pleased to welcome them this evening, and I will now turn it over to them.
Okay, hello. Thanks, Sam, for that introduction and for inviting us here tonight. Eileen and I are going to give a quick overview of artificial intelligence and its evolving role in our lives, with a focus on its effect on the media and misinformation environment. We'll try to leave time for your comments and questions, so add them to the chat as you think of them, and we'll open the discussion following the presentation. Artificial intelligence has been developed and used for decades. Within the last few years, it has become much more sophisticated and is suddenly widely available, widely used, and widely debated. You have almost certainly interacted with software that uses AI behind the scenes when you enter some text into Google Translate or shop on a platform that recommends products based on your browsing behavior, or when you use the predictive text feature in your messaging. Recently, AI has made the leap from a behind-the-scenes assistant to a creative tool, offering to generate illustrations, change the tone of your document, or create a slide deck based on your written notes. You may have used it yourself to create a draft of an email or to create graphics. And even if you haven't chosen to use AI directly, you have certainly come in contact with art, music, video, text, scientific information, all produced with the help of AI. Tonight, we're going to focus on AI in the context of the upcoming election cycle. We'll look at some of the ways AI is being used both to create disinformation and also to counteract it. And we'll talk about strategies we can all use to limit the negative effects of AI on our media and information environments. But first, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence refers to the ability of software to learn and to refine its decision-making process based on experience. AI software can analyze huge amounts of data to find new patterns without being told exactly what strategies to use. If it is programmed to prefer a certain outcome, like winning a chess match or making a sale or detecting an early stage cancer, it can comb through massive data sets to identify successful tactics and incorporate them into future decisions. Think about all of the digital data we have created in recent decades. Almost every aspect of our lives is recorded online: journalism, publishing, dating, family photos, movies, news footage, casual conversations, medical records, weather data, academic papers, music files, shopping. AI is here because it has evolved with this data, and it is well suited to analyze digital data at the scale we are creating it, and that therefore it's very likely here to stay. What's the benefit of AI software over traditional software? Here's a simplified example. Think about software designed to carry on a conversation, maybe about customer service. We have all interacted with customer service bots that were programmed the old-fashioned way. They can only handle a limited number of situations and respond with a canned answer. A well-trained AI customer service bot can respond much more naturally and handle a larger range of questions and responses from the customer. And well-trained means that the software has reviewed a large set of relevant conversations, looking for patterns of answers that lead to the result it is programmed to achieve. Notice that human judgment is key to the process. As with all computer software, the garbage in, garbage out rule applies. If this customer service bot is trained on conversations from dating apps, television scripts, or Twitter feeds, it will respond very inappropriately as a customer service chatbot. Human programmers are responsible for providing the right training data. The ability to learn from the experience of a data set is what makes AI so powerful. It allows computers to perform tasks that are difficult for humans to define for them. We humans can perform many complicated tasks flexibly without being able to describe exactly how we do it. Visual object recognition is a good example. People can tune out data from overlapping letters, gaps in printing, etc., and identify text in many different fonts and variations. And we can recognize objects from many angles and many variations. It would be hard for a programmer to turn that intuition into a mathematical formula for identifying each letter or object. AI allows the program to find its own formula using trial and error to match its results to the results of a human reader. Those CAPTCHA security checks online are designed to create training data for various AI applications. When AI software is trained to mimic more human tasks using real-world data sets, it will learn and reproduce real-world biases. One famous example is the AI recruitment program developed by Amazon in the 2010s to evaluate job candidates for various management roles and rank them. Part of the motivation for using automation was to eliminate interviewer bias and evaluate only the credentials provided by the applicant. The AI program was trained using resumes of previous applicants with names and demographic information redacted. Learning from the examples provided, the program learned to reproduce the existing hiring pattern by using specific rules that penalized women. For example, points were deducted for attendance at a women's college or participation in an organization with the word women in the name. Here's some more examples of bias. This image was produced by an AI generator with the prompt, "A group of attractive people." What's the first thing you notice about this picture? They're all white, right? AI image generators trained on images scraped from the internet faithfully reproduce racial and gender stereotypes when asked to produce an image. When prompts request pictures of people with positive characteristics like attractive or productive, they are disproportionately likely to produce images of white people rather than people of color. And early versions of one AI generator produced highly sexualized images when asked for pictures of Latina women. As it turns out, the data set was made up of publicly available images from the internet and included images from dating sites and even pornography. After removing these images from the data set and retraining, the software learned to produce a normal range of Latina women in everyday situations. Attempts to correct these biases after the fact are often clumsy. In one case, an image generator corrected for racial and gender balance produced a picture of a football team winning the Super Bowl that included 50% women on the team. And human programmers set the goals. To make AI effective, it's not just about having the right data. AI also requires a clear understanding of what defines success. Let's consider that customer service chatbot from an earlier slide. How should it evaluate a conversation's success? Is a long conversation better than a short one? Does a successful chat satisfy the customer or boost company profits? The chatbot continuously makes decisions to reach its objective, but it's up to the human programmers to define and refine that goal. Why refine? AI lacks a conscience and ethical framework. Unlike a human operator who can course correct, AI doesn't recognize or address unintentional harm. We've all seen how social media algorithms designed to maximize user engagement tend to promote angry and divisive content. The original programmers may not have expected this. After all, why would unpleasant content attract more engagement than positive or funny posts? AI spells out the subconscious rules we use when making decisions, sometimes making uncomfortable revelations about the irrational and biased ways we think. When AI produces harmful outcomes, it falls on human programmers to mitigate these issues if they choose to do so. And it's not simply a matter of toggling a good-evil switch. Modifying the program can lead to new unforeseen consequences, emphasizing the importance of thoughtful, careful AI development and ongoing human monitoring of the results. Next, Eileen will talk about some of the ways, good and bad, that AI is making changes to our lives.
AI pros and cons. One of the best examples of AI using its powers for good is a recent breakthrough in understanding protein folding, an important area of medical research. For decades, researchers have been working to build a database of the 3D molecular shapes of millions of proteins, tens of thousands of which are important in human biology. Many developmental disorders and disease processes are caused by errors in proteins, but the problem is extremely complex, and assembling one protein structure can take a lab several years to determine. In 2020, an AI program called DeepMind was trained on a set of proteins already analyzed and was able to solve even extremely complex protein structures with a degree of accuracy matching laboratory research and far exceeding the results of conventional program software. And AI can take a lot of busy work off our hands. AI is increasingly able to create first drafts of reports or presentations, or convert one type of document to another, performing some of the time-consuming work often performed by junior staff or interns. Even computer programs now rely on AI to come up with the algorithms they need for putting together a complex software application. And did you know that Zoom can now convert the transcript of a meeting into a summary or notes for you? While business and industry are adapting their operations by using AI to simplify and speed up processes, the unfortunate fallout is the loss to the job market of these low-end jobs. This is a worrying aspect of AI's impact, but some say that in the long run, the decreasing labor force will reduce human demand for those jobs. Futurists are predicting shorter work weeks and more leisure time in the future. Even as we try to come to terms with AI, we at the League of Women Voters are using and benefiting from it all the time. Predictive text, translation tools, behind-the-scenes virus scans, moderation of our social media platforms, all use AI to continuously improve their performance. Sometimes we use AI directly, like when we generate voice-prompted illustrations for the website or a flyer, or this slideshow. Almost every image in this presentation was produced using Canva's new image generator, saving the time and effort it takes to find appropriate images in the public domain. This is called generative AI. Generative AI is definitely more problematic. While most people see the value in using AI to solve complex problems or automate mundane tasks, generative AI can mimic artists and writers and mass-produce knockoff content, raising issues of intellectual property and copywriting. While Van Gogh is not around to be worried about this awful Christmas tree painting, what about an AI-generated Taylor Swift song sung in her AI-generated voice, or an AI-generated Stephen King novel? In the academic world, teachers, professors, and students also have to contend with AI-generated research papers that are increasingly hard to detect. And when AI has been trained using footage of public figures speaking, it can learn to imitate their voices, speech patterns, and physical mannerism. Video and audio content produced by AI can be very realistic, although at least for now, there are often telltale signs that they are fake. Telltale signs or not, viewers aren't in the habit of questioning this type of content, and the false information spreads widely before it can be debunked. Artificial intelligence is a disruptive force. You could pick any one of these technological advances and list many ways that society changed as they were adopted, both for better and for worse. In each case, whole categories of workers were displaced along with the old technologies. In each case, society rebuilt infrastructure, created regulations, modified architecture, and invented pop culture around the changes. AI is just the latest addition to this list. There are indeed significant societal costs to technological change. We can all list many negative effects of cars and smartphones on our own lives and on the culture at large, even while we eagerly adopt them and enjoy their benefits. These are two more major technological advances that brought huge changes to the way we traveled and communicated. How many of you remember flying in propeller-driven airplanes and having their first car, bicycle, phone? AI is posed to be our next major disruptor, and while there will be societal costs, it is likely to be here to stay. Technology has always shaped how we communicate and distribute information. Advances in technology from the printing press onward have tended to spread access to information. More recently, the internet has expanded the ability to publish information, widely transforming the way we communicate and find our news. With so many news sources now available, market forces are undercutting traditional investigative journalism and allowing misinformation to thrive. Artificial intelligence has already been an integral part of creating and spreading disinformation, mainly in the form of chatbots and newsfeed algorithms. The internet was hugely destabilizing to the media environment, and first wave AI, like these chatbots and micro-targeting, added to problem long before generative AI came along. So what does generative AI add to the equation? Ruth will take on that challenge.
Generative artificial intelligence adds to misinformation in three main ways. The first is the production of deep fake content. It is suddenly easy for anyone to create artificially generated video, audio, and photos which appear to document false information. The flip side of that coin is the denial of real documentary information. A politician caught on a hot mic or a criminal caught in the act on surveillance video can cast doubt on the evidence by suggesting that it's not real. And third, and we would argue the most important danger of AI, is the overall erosion of trust and the loss of a shared factual basis for discussion. Let's take a closer look at these three areas. Let's look at a couple recent examples. During the lead up to the New Hampshire primary, several thousand Democratic voters received phone calls which used an AI recreation of Joe Biden's voice. Fake Joe Biden told Democrats that it was important to skip the primary election and save their votes for November. In Chicago, a viral TikTok video featured deepfake audio of a candidate for mayor, seeming to make an offensive statement about police violence. And in a different incident, AI-generated photos seemed to show Donald Trump being wrestled to the ground by police in New York. These examples highlight advances in software that now make it easy for anyone to create visual and audio disinformation, and they show how simple it is to use AI to interfere with elections. But just because the software has become more sophisticated since the last presidential election cycle, does that mean the disinformation it creates is any more sophisticated or harder to refute? Not so much. We'll look at the ways to push back against AI disinformation later in the presentation, but for now it's worth noting that there are low-tech ways to achieve the same results, and that all of these supposedly deep fakes were easy to debunk with a quick phone call to a campaign office or press team. There have been several incidents lately in which public figures have used the AI card to deny responsibility for their remarks. The incident shown on this slide involved a secretly recorded conversation, but other incidents involved public speeches given in front of hundreds of people. Claiming that the compromising recordings are AI generated is adding plausibility to claims of fake news. This defense is also bubbling up in the courts as defendants claim that incriminating recordings are fake. While courts have procedures in place to verify evidence before admitting it, juries may begin to doubt what used to be considered conclusive evidence. The person accused in this story also demanded to know the source of the recording and receive a copy for review, and rightly so. As we'll discuss, identifying the original source is a good way to verify or refute information. The third effect of AI fakes, breakdown of trust, is the most worrisome. The presence of AI in the media environment can cause an overall lack of trust in media, news sources, public figures, and institutions. Eventually, this leads to the loss of a shared factual basis for political discussion. Once there's a sense that you can't trust anyone, it no longer feels possible to make meaningful choices or engage in the shared democratic process. Even after a piece of disinformation is debunked, the memory of being fooled by the news remains. The liars may fail to convince you to believe their lie and still succeed in breaking down your trust in a way that advances their agenda. In our responses to AI-generated disinformation, we need to avoid reinforcing the sense that it's impossible to know what's true. This may be more important than debunking individual instances of disinformation or defending individual instances of legitimate documentary content. When countering the corrosive effects of AI-generated disinformation, we need to emphasize and model ways to verify factual information. Let's see. Disinformation is a very serious threat to democracy and elections, and we need to address it. But deep fake AI does not really change the nature of the game much. Widely available photo, video, and audio editing software have long made it possible to create similar and often better fake documentary content. The effectiveness of disinformation is rooted in human psychology, which means that the legions of trolls on social media or public figures simply repeating false claims are able to spread lies easily without the help of deep fake content. We can use what we know about the psychology of belief and persuasion to counteract all disinformation, whether AI generated or not. Let's look back at our earlier examples of AI election interference. The fake Biden phone call, the fake hot mic audio, and the fake images of Trump being arrested. The Biden phone call could have used a voice actor, or use a different voice just claiming to be a representative of the campaign. The hot mic audio of the mayoral candidate could have gotten away with a substitute voice since the candidate's voice was not familiar to most voters, or instead of audio, they could have used a fake tweet from a spoof account. And the photos of Trump being arrested could have been made in Photoshop, probably with better results. For instance, Trump would not have had 3 legs. Next, Eileen is going to go over some tips for detecting AI disinformation.
Basically, we will be able to detect AI disinformation with our existing toolkit. The first one being AI itself. Artificial intelligence is the most effective and humane way to flag false and harmful content online. Already, AI software monitors social media content and removes or blocks information if it believes it's harmful, fraudulent, pornographic, or illegal. It is impossible for human monitors to perform this task in real time and also very stressful. If you or one of your friends has ever been in Facebook jail, an artificial intelligence was responsible for putting you there. And if you couldn't understand how you got there, the human staff at FB might not know either. That's because the AI bot creates its own rules based on the patterns it finds in its training data set, along with ongoing feedback about its decisions. AI fights all kinds of disinformation, whether created by AI or not. It can also look at metadata on accounts and shared files to help detect AI-generated content. For now, they are the usual telltale signs that an image or video is AI-generated, and we'll go over a few of those on the next slide. But in general, you can detect and debunk AI disinformation the same way you do with every other type. Remember our photo of the attractive people? We asked you for the first thing you noticed. What was the next thing you noticed? I'll give you a chance to think about that. Distortion. Several of these people are not so beautiful. And always check out the hands. Hand shapes are complicated and appear very different from different angles. For now, they have AI generators stumped. Sorry, one of the slides didn't show. Sorry. AI chatbots are more dangerous than deep fake because it's much easier to create a fake person if you don't have to draw any hands. Bots are used to spread or reinforce misinformation by posting or by jumping into comment threads to create the appearance of public support or rejection of an idea or person. The creation of fake grassroots input is called astroturfing. There are several times that should make you suspect a bot. Account names that are odd and may contain long strings of numbers. Profile pictures that are missing or are obvious stock photos. The account follows many other accounts but has few followers itself. Its posts are simple, repetitive, and often negative. Posts also trigger emotions, anger, fear, disgust that override your logic. Monitoring software can also detect bots easily using metadata. For instance, multiple accounts created simultaneously, or an IP address that does not match the supposed location of the account owner. or an account which is posting much faster than a typical human may be sending hundreds of posts within an hour. Accounts are flagged for sending over 1,000 posts a day. There are plugins available that will tell you whether an account is a bot or not. Bots are very easy for software to detect and remove, but they're also incredibly cheap and easy to create, so continue to be a problem because they can proliferate so fast. On the other hand, documentary photos and videos used to come to us mainly through news departments, publishing companies, or public institutions, and these institutions maintain their credibility by contacting original sources and using the editorial process. Now, as with print disinformation, original video, audio, and photo documentation can be published by some guy on the internet, and that is dangerous. The 3 examples of deep fake content we discussed above were all easily debunked by basic journalistic practice, calling the parties involved, verifying an alibi, questioning people who witnessed the event, etc. Now, you may not be following these steps personally, but you can bet that some reporter has. You can stop, think, and perhaps do some of these things. For instance, lateral reading, which refers to using multiple sources to verify information. Check content using several mainstream sources so that the original reporting. For instance, if you can see on our slide that it is a picture of a web page and there are several tabs, all sides, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, PolitiFact, and Snopes. You can ask one question and check the answers in all of those. That's lateral reading. Also using fact-checking sites and their list of original sources for the topic. They always list where they got their sources, and that's really interesting to follow up. Following up with any links to original document sources, such as an event video with multiple recorders and reporters, or transcripts, court documents, police blotters. These types of primary documents are much more useful in convincing or reassuring someone else than statements like, Snopes says it's false. Some of the outline sources include the list below. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I have a quote here from The Economist, which has been doing quite a series on AI. And it talks about societies adapting to fakers. People will learn that images, audio, or video of something does not prove that it happened any more than a drawing of it does. Online content will no longer verify itself, so who posted something will become as important as what was posted. Assuming trustworthy sources continue to identify themselves securely via URLs, email addresses, and social media platforms, reputation and provenance will become more important than ever. It may sound strange, but this was true for most of history. The era of trusted, mass-produced content was the exception. The fact that people may soon struggle to spot the invisible hand of AI does not mean the marketplace of ideas is doomed. In time, the fakes that thrive will mostly be the funny ones. End of quote. Returning to verified sources on or off the internet is a crucial step in combating disinformation. We can all participate in stopping the spread of malicious and divisive information. Training ourselves to recognize it and participate in programs designed to lessen its impact is a good start. Ruth will now talk about some strategies for action.
The first rule for countering disinformation of any kind, AI or not, is don't engage. Online, any form of interaction with a falsehood can serve to amplify it. Bad actors are counting on you to comment, dislike, or argue to help them spread their disinformation. The algorithms that choose which content to feed to people don't always care whether a post is getting positive or negative engagement, and some algorithms even favor negative engagement. They take any form of viewing, commenting, and resharing as a signal that they should boost the reach of a piece of mis or disinformation. The last thing you want to do is help more people see the disinformation you were trying to squash or debunk. Unfortunately, people often become unintentional spreaders of misinformation, even when they're trying to do something good. Rule number 2, your mother was right. Don't talk to strangers. If you are online and see a problematic content from someone you don't know, do not respond. The odds are very high that you are talking to a malicious chatbot. Did you know that in 2017, 8% of the user accounts on Twitter were bots, and they made a whopping 2/3 of the posts? Think about it. Over half of the activity on the platform at that time was fraudulent, and much of it was spreading misinformation. When you talk to strangers online, you are always arguing with a brick wall, and in most cases, a brick wall made of computer code specifically designed to keep you arguing. Even if you never debate online, it's good social media hygiene to limit your contacts and privacy settings to people you know in real life. This sets up roadblocks that slow the spread of misinformation and aid online public health. Here's a real example of a conversation I had on Facebook that illustrates how easily you can spread information without meaning to. I have a friend, Jackie, who does a lot of knitting and follows some knitting pages on Facebook. I don't follow these pages, but often she shares their posts on her own page and comments about the pattern and whether or not she should try it. Sometimes I chime in, and that's what I thought I was doing here. But instead of sharing the post on her own page, this time she had made her comment right on the public page. So lesson number 1, I mistook this public post for my friend's post. When you comment on a post on a public page, it will appear in the feeds of all of your friends, and at a glance, it looks like something you intended to share. This means that if you comment on a meme or news post from a bad actor or illegitimate news source, you may appear to be recommending the post to your friends, even when you're posting to refute or correct information. The story continues. I quickly realized that I had posted on a public page instead of my friend's page by the number of likes and reactions, but hey, what could go wrong on a knitting page, right? Then, what I believed to be a bot, oh,
I'm sorry.
back it up.
Yeah.
Then what I believed to be a bot joined the conversation to criticize my comment. Because I was tagged in the comment, all of my Facebook friends saw the post on their feed again, and soon many had jumped in to defend me and were engaged in a pointless argument with strangers and bots about who could and couldn't take a joke. This spread the post to all of their friends. Fortunately, it was just a knitting pattern and not a piece of disinformation. And why do I think it was a bot? For weeks, the same account would periodically repost the exact same comment, trying to reignite the argument. Lesson 2, the more you argue or engage, the further the post reaches. So public debates with bots and strangers are extremely counterproductive. Next, Eileen will talk about some tips to use if you do decide to engage with a friend or acquaintance.
If you do engage online, you want to avoid some common mistakes we all naturally have a tendency to make. You don't want to argue, especially online, and especially with a bot or a stranger. You will not be able to convince either. And as we discussed a minute ago, you will help the bot spread the falsehood into all of your followers and contacts. Even when we are dealing with someone you know in real life, if you argue directly with someone and try to contradict them, they usually respond defensively and get pushed deeper into their own corner. Unfortunately, this actually increases their belief in a misleading concept. In a heated argument, your disagreement can even be seen or felt as evidence in favor of the rumor they actually believe. In common, and it seems like common sense, to respond to misinformation by sharing a fact check. Fact checks and the people that produce them are a critical piece of the effort to counteract and build resilience to mis and disinformation. But some ways of using fact-checking sources are more effective than others. Unfortunately, many of these same people who believe or post misinformation are already skeptical of the organizations that produce fact checks and simply dismiss them as biased. and the conversation can quickly devolve and reinforce the belief that there's no way to find common ground. Look at this scandalous info about public figure. Snopes says that's fake. Well, Snopes is biased. Versus, look at this scandalous info about public figure. Are you sure that's real? Who took that picture? When did it happen? Is there a police report? What does public figure say? Can you point me to a news story about this? Or using the links found at Snopes or your other reliable source, add new information. I think that's been altered. You can see the original here, or in the case of deep fake imagery, look at the hands. It is more effective to read the fact check to satisfy your own curiosity about the information. Then you can use this knowledge or the original sources mentioned on the fact-checking site to help you communicate positively about the topic by asking questions that request verification and mention ways to find it. It's important to avoid spreading alarm about deepfakes. Spreading alarm about deepfake misinformation adds to its power and reinforces the dangerous idea that there's no way to verify information and no trustworthy sources. This idea empowers anti-establishment and anti-democracy voices and causes people to disengage from the political process. Use responses that model use of established sources of information and avoidance of social media for news content. For instance, doing that. Feel like you'd like to do more? It's encouraging to know that there are many organizations out there dedicated to fighting the forces of malice in the ether. The League has partnered with such groups as the Center for Social Media and Politics, the Center on Media Politics and Public Policy, Algorithm Transparency Institute, the Charitable Election Integrity Partnership, and the Mis and Disinformation Election Security Initiative of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. The Civic Listening Corps, a program of the Algorithmic Transparency Institute, is a hands-on grassroots effort to get you and me and thousands of others to monitor the many roads of the internet and report what is going on with regard to mis and disinformation. We can directly help keep democracy working by participating in this project. To learn more, go to the Civic Listening Corps website. The LWVPA already has a CLC working team in place, so you can contact Sam Anthony directly if you want to participate, and I'm going to. That brings us to the end of our talk today. We hope you've enjoyed it and gained some insights about AI from it. We'd like to hear your observations, your questions, including ideas about what other facts about AI we could include in future presentations.
Thank you so much, Eileen and Ruth. That was so thorough and so detailed. I always love hearing you two present because I feel like I learned so much information. So I am now going to open it.
I want to make a comment that this is 90% Ruth Quint's work. I just was her support person and helped her read the slides, but she did a fantastic job on it.
Well, thank you both so much. Thank you, Ruth, and we really appreciate it. I'm going to open it up to questions now. So folks who are in attendance, if you have comments or questions, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A function. Right now we have one question from Catherine Holt, which is just an interesting one I hadn't thought of at all, which is how does the huge energy, like electricity use of AI affect the climate crisis and our politics around alternative energy sources?
Well, actually, interestingly, the same group that produced the DeepMind program, the DeepMind company, has done a program that reduces energy use in specifically in, I think, Bitmine or something production. And they were able to use an AI computer, an AI program to analyze where all of the energy was being used in their system. And they were able to reduce the actual production of the Bitcoin, or maybe it was just some kind of DeepMind AI software cranking out electrons. I don't know, but they were able to reduce that 40%. And that reduced the overall output, the overall energy use of that facility by about 20%, because the facility also used electricity for lighting, heating, and all kinds of other things. So the DeepMind company would claim that AI can be used to help identify ways to reduce our energy usage.
The other thing, we thought about talking a little about our regulations, but it's all in such an early stage and it's so amorphous that we decided not to. But it seems to me that this is where regulations might have an effect if they required these kinds of stations, which use and they do use a huge amount of energy, to use alternative ways of energy, or to come up with ways of running their operations without using the huge amount of energy that they do use. So we might be able to force people to do that.
Maybe we'll have you come back in 2025 for a part 3 about another part 3 to mis and disinformation. I mean, there's always conversation to be had.
Yeah.
So I have another question from Jan asking if you could explain more about the Civic Listening Corps and its purpose or actions. If you'd like me to do that, I can, but if you want to answer it.
Why don't I mean, I can do it, but probably you know even more about it. The website explains basically what they ask you to do is to volunteer to monitor a Facebook feed or a variety of social media sites during a specific period of time. So you would sign up for an hour or two on X day of X week, and then you would report anything that you saw that was suspicious or concerned you. And the other thing, a part of it, is that the same people are creating, I can't remember the name of the site, but they're pouring all of this information into one place so that people can find, I guess in the future it'll be like finding a specific piece of misinformation and where it appeared and that sort of thing. So it would help researchers.
And so the Civic Listening Corps is this big project that is working with the National League and other organizations. And we Pennsylvania, like the PA League, is working on a project with them right now to kind of do all of that at a PA specific level. So if you're interested in volunteering for that, essentially you would be, like Eileen said, looking for bad actors on social media and other blog sites and kind of helping to report them. So if you're interested in getting involved with that, we could always have volunteers for the primary and the general, and you can email me and I can get you connected. And then our last question that I see for right now, Ruth is typing an answer, but it's from Alan, and his question is, what efforts are counties and the state taking to combat AI and misinformation?
I just put a link in the chat that the state of Pennsylvania has now a fact checker specifically on election disinformation. And right now they have little articles covering 5 different disinformation types of disinformation that's floating around about Pennsylvania elections. So they're working on that, and I threw that in the Q&A. I don't know if everybody can see it or not, but and then the county, Allegheny County, I don't know that they're doing anything specifically to address disinformation, but they're doing a good job of pushing out information about the elections. They have a weekly newsletter during election seasons that anyone in Allegheny County can subscribe to, and it really does a good job of explaining exactly what's going on, when the ballots are being sent and how exactly you can return them and where the ballot drops are and what's being decided at the Board of Elections meeting. So I find that really helpful to give people the accurate information and point them to that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a proactive, correct information is a really good way to combat some of this misinformation. So those were the questions that I was seeing now. In the follow-up, Eileen?
I just wanted to say one other thing about this volunteer project. When Ruth and I started researching this, I realized that I am not exposed to much of this at all because I don't use a lot of social media. I have a Facebook account and I only check it once or twice a week to see what my kids are doing. But other than that, I'm not bombarded with a lot of this. So I'm not familiar with what it looks like. And I'm really curious about it because this is what young people are seeing. My grandchildren in their early 20s, where are they getting information about voting and what is being fed into their social media accounts? And I think that by finding out about it, we can do a better job educating when we do our civic outreach and we try to train people on voting and why they should vote. We could address that question, but we don't. I don't know about the rest of the audience, but I don't have any experience directly seeing these bots and these.
And the Civic Listening Corps, part of it is that they'll give you training on how to spot them. They, any and all social media experience is encouraged if you want to volunteer. So
in my
if you're
experience on
interested.
social media lately, I find that it's been really tamped down since the last presidential election cycle.
Yeah.
Very few people are commenting about politics or reposting things, and there seems to be kind of like a weariness with it all, maybe. I'd like to think maybe a sort of live and learn, like Eileen said, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I think a lot of people now are starting to say, you know what, we've been through this once before, and now I recognize how I was manipulated and got all worked up in this last time. And I really find like the neighborhood social media has really like gone back to kittens and puppies. And
That's good. Well, thank you both so much for your time. I am just going to close this out with a couple reminders from the State League. The first is that I'm sure you all know that the primary election is a week away. It's very exciting. So just a plug for either going to your local League of Women Voters website to find a voter guide or voter information, and or visiting vote411.org, which is the League's nonpartisan voter education tool. Our local League members work very hard to contact candidates and get information directly from the candidates. So it's really straight from the source information, and you can find your polling place, make sure you're all set to vote, and make your plan to vote. So highly recommend visiting that. And then, of course, you'll be getting a reminder of me before our next Ballot Box Basics, but our next Ballot Box Basics will be after the summer. We're going to take a little post-primary break, and then we'll be back in the fall. Our next one will be on August 20th, and we'll be talking about election integrity, and that will feature Tad Hall and Timothy Benyo, who are county directors of elections and the chief clerk for registrations and elections for Lehigh and Mercer counties. So we hope you join us for that. Don't worry, you'll get a reminder from me. So if you forget, I'll make sure you all know. And I'll be sending out a follow-up tomorrow with contact information for myself, Ruth, and Eileen. So if you want to continue the discussion or have any other questions, you'll see some resources from me on that tomorrow. And thank you all so much for your time this evening. I hope your weather is as nice as it is here, and you can have a great rest of your night. Thank you, and have a good night. Bye.
Bye.